Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to introduce True Armor to you. I'm going to go over all the MCM menu options to explain what they do, and I'm also going to demonstrate the effects quickly here on the friendly townspeople of Riverwood. So first of all, what does True Armor do? True Armor is an armor system overhaul for Skyrim, and it makes the system a lot deeper and more realistic. It achieves this by giving the different armors specific strengths and weaknesses. So for example, a steel plate armor may be very strong against swords, but weak against maces or magic, and it can also slow you down while wearing it or hinder your regeneration. As you can see here, there are lots of options for the different armors and some general settings to tweak. And you may not want to do this all by yourself because the mod comes in a blank state. For this purpose, there are some example settings included, which also happen to be my recommended settings. So if you do not want to tweak everything by yourself, you can just load these settings and be done with it. But for the purpose here, we are going to start with the general settings. So here, first of all, you can enable the protections of True Armor. And as you can see, there are two protection types or layers called Deflect Protection and Pierce Protection. They work basically the same, but the philosophy is a bit different between them. When you think about deflect protection, think about a sword glancing off a steel plate, or maybe even hitting it correctly, but it doesn't really do a lot. A sword certainly is not going to cut through a steel plate armor. So that's what deflect protection is about. Pierce protection, on the other hand, is if the enemy manages to strike a weak spot in your armor, but it is still protecting you a bit. So for example, in the steel plate scenario, if the enemy with a sword, he manages to thrust his sword between your plates, but underneath is still a bit of padding and maybe even mail, so you do not get all the damage, but it's still going to hurt a bit. So that's what pierce protections are about. So deflect is the best case scenario, basically. Pierce protection is the second best case scenario. Then here we can also enable the attribute changes for player and NPCs. And now the main functions of True Armor are enabled. The next thing that you see are the armor priorities. They determine how likely it is that a certain part of your body is getting hit. So in this case, out of 12 hits on average, your head would get hit 3 times, the body 4 times, the hands 3 times, and the feet 2 times. For this, I'm just going to leave them as they are. The next thing is the health limiter, which is a nice tool to counter the damage sponginess that many enemies in Skyrim have. It does pretty much exactly what it sounds like that it does. So it reduces the effective health that enemies have by reducing their resistances. So let's say I'm setting it up like this, which would then mean that my enemies have a maximum effective health of 10. We can quickly show this, quick saving before the carnage here. And then, yeah, as you can see, they are not very durable, of course, with just 10 health, and go down very quickly. That is the health limiter. Then the next settings here are some default game settings that you can change. This is because True Armor and the armor system that is in the vanilla game, they are currently active at the same time. And they try to do similar things and can get into the way of each other in the sense that certain armors would get, for example, double penalties or double benefits. So for example, Daedric, assuming you set it up as the strongest armor in True Armor, and it's also the strongest armor in the vanilla game, then it would get double benefit, which would make it OP, of course. So you may want to reduce the efficiency of the vanilla armor rating system here to, let's say, 20% of what it was before. And similarly, when you're running with a lot of weight on you from your armor, you would get a stamina penalty in the vanilla game. So here you could also reduce how strong that penalty is, because True Armor can be set up to come with a penalty of its own already. And you can also deactivate the speed penalty there is. Then there are a few settings regarding scripts and weapon speed multifix. They are pretty specific, and the default settings should be alright for almost all cases, so I'm not going to go over them here. Good. Then for demonstration, the people in the town here all are completely equipped with cloth. If at some spot you do not wear anything at all, that also counts as cloth. So let's say we would give them a 100% damage reduction when we hit them with a sword. So in this case, there would be a 100% chance, if I attack one of them with my sword, that they deflect that, and the deflect protection in that case is also 100%. So they are basically invulnerable to my sword. And as you can see, I am wearing a full set of iron armor myself. So for me, the iron protections here apply. And let's say I would give myself a 100% protection against maces in 100% of all cases. And also I will give myself a movement speed and weapon speed increase, because I'm wearing iron armor and I set the attributes here like this, just because it's fun. Okay, so now let's see. If I'm hitting him with my sword, of course it is not going to do anything at all, because he's protected against that. But my axe makes short work of them, of course. And this guy here, he has a hammer, which counts as a mace. And as you can see, he cannot really do anything at all against my iron armor. So yeah, poor bastard. And that's how the protections work. If you want to set these protections up by yourself, you will want to think about, well, how likely is it that this armor would, let's say, deflect an axe? And then you can think about it, okay, let's say 37% chance, and even if I deflect the axe, it may still hurt a bit and maybe even give me a concussion or something like that. So the protection is probably not 100%, but you would be protected pretty well, let's say 90%. And for the pierce protection, then how likely is it that an axe user would strike me in a really bad spot, or would deliver such a strong blow that even though it hits my my iron plate, it would still hurt a lot. And that's what the pierce chance would be, let's say 33%, and some pierce protection of, let's say, 40%. And this is how you would go at coming up with values of your own, if you do not want to use the example settings, or if you want to tweak them. In this case here, so I would have a 37% chance to reduce damage made by axes by 90%, and a 33% chance to reduce it by 40%. And in all the other cases, so in 30% of other cases, I would just eat all the damage of this axe. So in that case, you could think about it, for example, if the axe strikes a simply unarmored part. like my arm, for example. Or if you are wearing some steel plate armor that covers a lot of your body, and some guy manages to thrust his sword through the eye slits, or something like that. Okay, in general, you do not want to set these chances up so that they add up to more than 100%. So for example, like this, that would mean that I always get at least the pierce protection. In this case, it would the chance that I get all the damage is 0%, and you usually don't want that, but you can do it. Okay, then if you are satisfied with how the armors relate to each other, so Daedric to Glass and so on, and Glass to Elven, and and you think they relate well to each other, but you wish for a bit more protection overall across the board, then you would have to fiddle with all the values again, and you probably don't want to do that. That's what the baseline adjustments are for. Here in the baseline adjustments, you can tweak this or fine-tune them afterwards. So for example, let's say you want all of your deflect protections to be a bit better. So I'm setting the anchor or the target for the interpolation to 100%, and the interpolation strength to, let's say, 50%. So now if I would have a deflect protection somewhere that was 50% before, it will now be 75%, because I interpolated this towards 100% with a strength of 50%. If I would set the anchor, for example, to 55% and the strength of interpolation to 100%, this would mean that all the armors, regardless of what they had set before, would exactly have a deflect protection of 55%. And it works the same way for the deflect chances, the pierce chances, and the pierce protections. So this is very handy if you want to just adjust a little bit afterwards. And then you have the same thing for the attributes, basically. You can scale them afterwards here, and you can also apply some attributes across the board. So for example, you want that all your actors move 40% faster per default, and also swing their weapons much faster. This also affects NPCs, so yeah, you can set that there. Then, lastly, there are these options. They can increase the efficiency of shields and of blocking in general. On the left-hand side, this is nothing special. It just increases the amount of damage that a block absorbs. On the right-hand side, this is a little bit more interesting. If you have a shield equipped, but you do not actively block with it, it doesn't do anything for you, or almost nothing, at least in the vanilla game. And here you can set that up so that even if you do not actively block, there is still a certain chance that if the attack comes from the direction where you also hold your shield, that it will actually get blocked. In this case, that just means that you will reduce the incoming damage by this percentage here. And this is also nice to increase the importance of shields. And also if you play a character that doesn't usually wear armor, but may wear a shield, then you can give the shield some extra protection here. Okay, and lastly, we had this screen before already. You can here save your own settings in one of these 5 slots and load them later again. And you can also load the presets. So that's it, basically. I hope you enjoyed this video and it was helpful for you. Maybe you will give the mod a try or even leave a comment. I would really like to read them. All right, thank you and bye.